This is Lisa McFarland again, and I am excited because we are starting our second round of the boot camp for the Fivefold Ministry. Today, I just want to take a few minutes to just highlight how I even got into ministry and what that's like. Today, I'm going to share just a couple of things about what it was like moving into the office of a prophet. For me, this is what it was like. I know Ephesians 4:11 says God gives some to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, pastors, and teachers. But I never heard of any of that. We didn't even really go to church. But for me, I was a little kid at about 7 years old. I was outside sitting out on this little grassy hill in Indiana, and I was picking daisies. And you remember that story back then? You pulled a little petal off and you'd say, he loves me not, he loves me not. And I was making like little rings, you could put flowers in your hair as a 7-year-old little girl. And all of a sudden, this is what it was like for me. I heard this voice say, I love you. And I remember looking around, who was that? And I heard it again, I love you. Lisa. And I'm like looking around and I was freaking out. And so I said, where are you? And I heard him say, I am up here. So I ran inside into the little trailer where my family lived at that time. And I said to my mom, there's a guy outside. He's talking to me. So my mom comes out there ready to confront a predator. And she's looking around, where is he? Where is he? And I said, Mom, he's up there. He's talking. Can you hear him? And she said, Lisa, go outside and play. And she just stormed back in the house and she was mad at me. And I was putting my finger up at the sky and I said, hey, you got me in trouble. And you know what? That's been my relationship with Jesus ever since. He talks, I get in trouble when I tell people what he says. Being funny aside, I began to speak to him and I said, who are you? You know, I couldn't see him, but I could feel his presence and I could hear his voice. It was like he was talking inside of me, and yet it was like I could hear him out here too. And he said, I am Jesus, and I'm going to be your best friend. And from that day on, I heard God's voice like every single day of my life. And you say, oh yeah, people taught you that. No, we didn't go to church. I didn't even know who Jesus was. I remember I went back inside and said, Mom, that guy that's talking. He says his name is Jesus. And her face got all funny and she's, I've heard of him. He's okay. You can talk to Jesus. He's God. And after that, I began this relationship with him. And he would talk to me as a little kid. And I would talk about the birds and the trees. But as my life went on, for me, I did not know that I was going to be a prophet. I didn't know that before I was born like Jeremiah, God had ordained me and knew me and was forming me to be a prophet to the nations. I'm a little kid, I don't know. But this is what happened for me. I would be with people and I'd look at them and all of a sudden I would know things about them. It was crystal clear. I'd be like, whoa, that guy's a bad guy. Or I'd look over at this person and I'd be like, oh, they're smiling, but inside they're really sad. And I knew it. And I'd walk over to them and say, hey, why are you sad? What's going on? Can I give you a hug? And they would look at me as a little kid like, how do you know that? And then the dreams started. I remember having dreams, and I've never really ever had a dream that was not from the Lord. I know people have pizza dreams and all that, but that's not how it's been for me. God speaks to me very heavily through dreams and has since I was a little child. And at that time, they were big dreams and they had all these themes and parables and literal meanings in them, but I did not know. But what I did know, because my family is partially Native American, we knew that God spoke to us, the Creator spoke to us through dreams. So we didn't discount them, we encouraged them and we discussed them. And that was probably something that was very good and healthy for me, because I know many other prophets don't come from an indigenous background where dreams and supernatural and spiritual encounters are valued or taken seriously. And I know that they've experienced a lot of hardship from that. For me, I began to have dreams. I would be like, oh, I had a dream about you. And people were like, what happened? I saw you in a car wreck. And then a week later, they'll come back and they're shaking me. Hey, little girl, how'd you know I was going to be in a wreck? And they're all upset. And I learned that sometimes knowing things or God speaking to you wasn't always a positive experience. It seemed to me that people got angry. It was almost as though that if I told them what God said and it happened, somehow I was making it happen. or they were blaming me for it. And in other people, it was like once they knew that you have this gift or that God's talking to you, they'd come around and ask you to talk to God for them. Or they would ask you what God was saying. Or they would look at you weird and treat you different. And you'd come in the room and they'd be like, and they'd look and they'd stop talking. And so I just remember really struggling with loneliness and not having very many friends. And going through always feeling like I was outside the box. It seemed like everybody else was living life and I was outside of that. And I'm always on the outside looking in to what everybody else was doing. And the other thing that really happened for me is when I would go into certain communities or schools or situations, there would always be people that I call them prophetic people on the dark side. They had a controlling spirit or a Jezebel spirit. Immediately, as soon as we would be in the same room together, there would be this negativity, this rejection from them, shaming me, causing me to look bad, or a hostility, literally an enmity between what was operating in them and what was operating in me. And as a child and as a young person, even as a young adult, that caused me to really struggle with shame and fear of failure or a fear of being exposed. But one of the coolest things, though, that people don't tell you about being a prophet is that the prophet's reward is this intimacy with God. How God just loves you and he wants to share his heart with you. And he just wants to show you things about himself. And I probably have hundreds of encounters with the Lord. I always laugh. People say, oh, you just talk, you tell us everything. I'm like, nah, not really. I really only share about 25% of what happens between me and the Lord, because I feel like, one, it's so personal and intimate that I feel like unless those people are ready for that, they won't value it. But the other one is, I just feel like people can't handle it or they're not really interested. Let me share a couple of very intimate things that the Father has done for me. I was just thinking about this the other day. I remember when I was asking Jesus to teach me about himself. And I was like, I want to hear about the future and I want to hear about prophetic words for other people. But if that's the only dimension you have in your life as a prophet, man, you're missing out. You're missing it. I remember in the old days, you'd be like, oh, you don't want to be a prophet. You'll be rejected and you'll go through a hard time. And that's true. But they forgot to tell you about the good stuff. The good stuff that is worth everything. Every bit of the suffering is worth even just 1 second where you see him face to face. So I was saying, oh, Jesus, I love you so much. I want more of you. I need to know more about you, Jesus. And I feel like I'm walking around in the dark. And Jesus just comes, like immediately. The room fills with the presence. And it's almost like the room gets brighter. And I didn't see him or anything, but literally I heard him say, Lisa, you need to walk in the light as I am in the light. And I'm like, okay. Because when he comes and he gives you a revelation, it's almost like it's an invitation. Hey, you want it? You want it? You want to know what I'm talking about? And what he's looking for is agreement. Or you to say, yeah, I want it. Yeah, I want it. And so I said, okay, I don't know how to walk in the light as you're in the light. I want to walk in the light as you're in the light. Show me how to walk in the light as you're in the light. And while I'm in this, yes, right? Now the deep within me is crying out to the deep that's in him, because his deep desire is so much greater than your desire is for him. His desire is so much greater for you. And now the Spirit and the bride are both saying, yeah, Jesus, bring it on. Yeah, Jesus, bring it on. Do it, Jesus. And so all of a sudden, whoosh, I am in this place. I'm no longer like where I was. I don't know if I was in my body or out of my body, but I'm in this place. It was definitely a room. I was inside of a building or something. And I see a giant menorah. I don't know if you know what a menorah is, but it's like the lampstand. It's got 7. There's one in the middle that represents Jesus himself, the spirit branch, the servant branch in the middle. And then there's these branches that come out, and another branch that comes out, and another branch that comes out. And I see it. It's huge. I don't know how many feet tall, but it's taller than me. And it's solid gold, and it's humongous. Ugh. And the cups are like this big. And I can't see inside of them because it's over my head. But I know there's oil in there, because coming out of those, the cups are like a ball, is fire. And it was literally like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. And I said, whoa, clearly he's saying walk in the light as I'm in the light, and I'm seeing a light I have never seen before. I want you to think about that where Jesus says, I am the light of the world. So was I seeing a symbol, a parable, or a theophany of Jesus when Jesus was a menorah? I'm like, whoa! And then all of a sudden I just flew up in the air, and it was like Superman, and I'm standing on top of this cup where there's one branch, and there's no candle or anything, there's just fire, and it's red. And it's 7 feet tall, and I'm standing in the midst of this red flame, and my feet are in the oil, and I'm like, whoa. And he's walk in the light. And I don't know. I'm like, okay. So I literally did like this. I walked to the red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, and I'm walking almost like I'm skipping from this cup to that cup. And then I would turn around. It was weird, like I was a ballerina, and I would turn around, and I would come back, and I was stopping, and then I would like dance in the bowl, and I could feel the splashing up of the oil. And you say, what are you talking about, Lisa? I'm talking about, like, orange is the spirit of counsel. I know that. While I was in the red flame, I'm in the pool of the counsel of the Lord. Literally, the water of his eye. And I'm dancing in there, and it's splashing up all over me. And then if you were to go over to the indigo, I would be in the spirit of might. And I was almost like being baptized or dipping into that dimension of Jesus being the light of the world. Where Isaiah chapter 11 says, in him is the spirit of counsel, wisdom, revelation, understanding. And Jesus, when I asked him, yeah, I want to know you, I want a revelation of you, I was picturing like, I don't know, Jesus walking around the Bible with sandals. Oh no, wham, I'm taken up into a heavenly place, and I see Jesus as the lampstand. And people often say, how do you know all these things? How do you have this understanding of the Bible? And if you're a prophet, it comes out of encounter. Bird's imprint, and you learn by encountering Jesus. And as your eyes are looking at him, it's bouncing in you, and it's literally tattooing a revelation of Jesus inside of you that you never forget. So when we're talking about the fivefold, I want to encourage you, if you feel like God has called you to be a prophet or have prophetic ministry, then not just always see the negative side of it. Come on, there's a deep place of God, a deep revelation down inside of you that Jesus is calling you to. And I don't want you to be afraid of the office of the prophet. I don't want you to be afraid of the ministry of the prophet. You know, everybody should seek to prophesy, but that doesn't make you a prophet. But if real prophets are in among us, their anointing leaks out, and they equip everybody to become prophetic. So I hope you'll consider being a part of our fivefold ministry boot camp, because I feel like together we could go to a whole nother level of understanding the ministry, the fivefold, the five fingers of Jesus, and how he's building his church today.